Ah, December. That magical time of year when the world splits into two types of people. Those who put up the Christmas tree the second Halloween is over, and those of us who silently judge those people. But in the end, almost all of us cave. We pull out that dusty box, we fight with a tangled mess of plastic branches, we untangle a kilometer of lights that, I swear, reproduced and tied themselves in knots in the attic, and we end up hanging shiny baubles and things our kids made in school. And when we're done, we sit back and look at it. A tree, dead or plastic, inside our living room, blinking. If you think about it for 2 seconds, it makes no sense. It's weird. At what point in history did we, as a species, say, "I've got it"? To celebrate, let's go chop down a pine tree and drag it into the house. Who was the first person who saw a fir tree and thought, that would look great next to the sofa? Well, if you want the short answer, it's the Germans' fault. And if you want the long answer, well, look, it's also the Germans' fault, but to understand why it was them, we have to take a long trip. A trip that starts way earlier in a, let's call it pre-Christian era. A time of ancient gods, dark forests, and people who were, frankly, terrified of winter. Put yourself in their shoes. You're some guy, let's call him Og, in Northern Europe, 2,000 years ago. There's no central heating, there's no Netflix. Winter means cold, darkness, and the food is running out. And then comes the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. It's the official day when darkness wins, and that, my friend, is terrifying. In the middle of that dead, gray, depressing world, where all the regular trees look like skeletons, there was one type of plant that just didn't care. The evergreen. Pines, firs, mistletoe, holly. They were the only ones giving winter the middle finger. The only ones that stayed green. For those people, they were a powerful symbol. They were the promise that life went on, that the sun would return. So, what did they do? The logical thing. They cut branches and brought them inside. They hung them over doors and windows. It was like a good luck charm. A sticky note to remind life, hey, life, remember to come back, okay? The Romans, who never missed a good party, did something similar during Saturnalia. The Vikings celebrated Yule, and fir trees were sacred. So, for centuries, the idea of green plant in winter is cool was just floating around in the cultural ether. But of course, this was all ancient religion stuff. And then Christianity arrived, spreading through Europe like wildfire. And this is where it ran into a problem. People were really attached to their winter parties. Trying to ban them was social suicide. So the first missionaries, who were very practical people, applied the rebranding strategy. Can't beat 'em? Join 'em. You guys love the solstice? Congratulations. Now it's Jesus's birthday. You decorate with green branches? Perfect. Now they symbolize Christ's eternal life. And this is where we meet our first big legend. And our first German. Well, a missionary in Germany, which is close enough. 8th century. The protagonist is an English missionary named Saint Boniface. And Boniface was fed up. He'd come to the Hesse region to convert the local tribes, but it was hopeless. The people were still obsessed with their old gods. Specifically, they had a fixation on one tree, a gigantic oak tree consecrated to Thor, the god of thunder. Boniface, who was a man of action, said, "Enough of this nonsense." He showed up in the village, axe in hand, and announced he was going to chop down their sacred tree. The locals were, to put it mildly, clenching. They all gathered around, waiting for Thor to hurl a lightning bolt and fry this insolent dude. Boniface raised his axe and whack! He started chopping. And nothing happened. No thunder, no lightning, just a sweaty missionary. According to the legend, just as Boniface landed the final blow, a gust of wind, divine, convenient, knocked the giant oak over, and right behind it, growing among the roots, was a small fir tree, a little sapling. Boniface, who had flawless marketing reflexes, saw his shot. He turned to the crowd and belted out, "This little tree, this is your new tree. See how its leaves are evergreen? That's Christ's eternal life. See how it points to heaven? It points to God. And see its three-cornered shape? That's the Holy Trinity." Did this really happen? Not a chance. But as a PR story, it's a 10 out of 10. It's the exact moment Christianity looked at the ancient tree and said, "I'll take that." Boniface baptized the fir tree. Okay, fast forward a few centuries. Middle Ages. Where are we? Still in Germany. See? Told you.
In the 15th century, plays in churches telling the story of Adam and Eve became super popular. They were called paradise plays. To tell that story, you need stuff, props. And the most important prop is the tree of knowledge. But you're in Germany in December. There are no apple trees with leaves. What tree do you have handy that's green and looks the part? A fir tree. So the church folks would grab a fir tree, stick it on stage, and just so nobody missed the point, they hung red apples on it. After the play, the people who were fascinated by this paradise tree started thinking, you know, that looks pretty nice. And they started putting their own trees up at home on December 24th. And to make it even more religious, next to the apples, sin, they started hanging wafers, redemption, the communion host. Over time, those wafers evolved into cookies and sweets. Boom! We're almost there. A tree, inside, with ornaments. Food. We're so close. We just need one crucial element. The lights. And here comes another German. 16th century. The head of the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther himself. The legend, again, is fantastic. The story goes that Luther was walking home one winter's night. He's walking through a forest and looks up and sees something that just blows his mind. The stars were shining so brightly that they looked like they were hanging, twinkling, among the branches of the pine trees. He got home so excited he wanted to recreate that image for his family. So he went to the forest, chopped down a small fir, dragged it into the living room, and this is where you should brace yourselves, he tied actual wax candles to the branches. Candles with fire on a tree, a dry tree, inside a wooden house. A genius and a public menace. I can't even imagine the stress of having that in your house, but the image must have been absolutely stunning. The tree, with its flickering lights representing the starry sky over Bethlehem, and there it is, the winning combo. The ancients gave us the love for the green tree. The church plays gave us the idea to bring it inside and hang food on it. And Luther gave us the lights and the insurance bill. All of it, as I said, thanks to the Germans. So, by the mid-16th or 17th century, the Christmas tree as we know it was basically invented. It had the tree, it had ornaments, food, and it had lights with a serious fire hazard. But here's the funny part. For almost 200 years, this tradition was a German inside joke. Nobody else in Europe did it. Seriously.
The French thought it was a bizarre eccentricity of their neighbors. The English didn't even know it existed. It was a regional, super Protestant, and super German tradition. If you were Catholic in Germany, you wouldn't dream of putting up a tree. The Catholic Church saw it as a Lutheran thing, almost pagan. Catholics set up nativity scenes, the Italian presepe. The tree was for Protestants, and that's how things stayed until the 19th century. So what happened? Well, once again, a German was responsible for the whole thing blowing up. But this time, it wasn't a missionary or a reformer. It was a prince. We're off to England, 1840. The young Queen Victoria, just on the throne, marries her cousin. And guess where he was from? Yep, Prince Albert was German, from Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Albert arrived in England, and when the first Christmas rolled around, he took a look around Buckingham Palace and said, "This is all very nice, Victoria, my dear, but where is the Tannenbaum? Where is the tree?" The English court just looked at each other like, the what? For them, Christmas was about eating a lot and putting up some holly. But a whole tree? Albert, who missed his home traditions, decided to import it. In 1841, he set up a huge fir tree in Windsor Castle, decorated just like in his childhood, with candles, sweets, and ornaments. The royal family loved it, but the real explosion happened in 1848. Back then, getting a picture of the royal family was the equivalent of a post going viral on Instagram. The Illustrated London News published an engraving that became legendary. It showed Queen Victoria, Prince Albert, and their children, all looking very proper, gathered around a spectacular Christmas tree. And that was it. The second, normal people saw that the Queen, who was the biggest influencer of her time, had a tree. Everybody wanted one. If the Queen was doing it, it had to be the coolest thing. In less than 10 years, what had been an obscure German custom became the essential trend in all of England. And from England, it leaped to the rest of the English-speaking world. And America? Well, in America, it was a two-part story. First, the German immigrants, them again, who came to Pennsylvania in the 18th and 19th centuries, had already brought the custom with them, but they kept it to their own communities. The purebred American Puritans viewed it with extreme suspicion. And when I say suspicion, I'm underselling it. They hated Christmas. Seriously, in 17th century New England, celebrating Christmas was banned by law. You'd be fined 5 shillings, which was a ton of money, just for taking the day off, or even worse, for hanging a piece of holly. They saw it as a pagan, Catholic, decadent holiday. A total binge, basically. But then, the same thing happened as in England. In the mid-19th century, that picture of Queen Victoria hit the United States. American magazines copied it, although in a very patriotic move, they scrubbed off the Queen's crown and Albert's mustache to make them look like a normal American family. And boom, same effect. Every American wanted a tree. In 1856, President Franklin Pierce put the first Christmas tree in the White House, and that was like the final seal of approval. Christmas had won. And this is where America Americanized the tradition. Germans used small tabletop trees. Americans, who like everything big, said go big or go home. We want trees that hit the ceiling. And they also solved that tiny little fire problem. Remember Luther's candles? Well, as you can imagine, they caused incidents. Thousands of homes burned down over the decades. People would keep buckets of water and sand next to the tree just in case. It was madness. Until a guy came along in 1882, Edward H. Johnson. He was a partner of some guy named Thomas Edison. Yes, that Edison. They had just invented the light bulb, and Johnson, who was a marketing genius, had an idea. He took 80 small colored bulbs, red, white, and blue, very patriotic, wired them by hand, and hung them on his Christmas tree in his New York home. At first, the press thought it was a tacky publicity stunt, but when they saw that tree glowing with electric lights, no smoke, no melted wax, and importantly, not setting the carpet on fire, they lost their minds. It was insanely expensive, mind you. That first year, a set of lights cost the equivalent of $3,000 today. It was a toy for millionaires. But the idea was out there, and as soon as electricity got cheap and mass production kicked in, electric Christmas lights changed everything. The tree could be lit for hours, days, weeks. It could be bigger. It could hold more ornaments. And speaking of ornaments, you know where tinsel comes from? Guess. Yep, Germany. Of course it was. In 1600s, Nuremberg, they started using wafer-thin strips of actual silver to simulate ice on the branches. Silver. It looked amazing, but it tarnished instantly. So they switched to other metals, including for a while lead. Yes, lead. Super festive and super toxic. Luckily today it's plastic. And glass baubles? Take a wild guess. Germany. In the tiny village of Lauscha, which was full of glass-blowing experts, one craftsman had the idea to make glass fruit to hang. And from there to a shiny ball was a tiny step. And that brings us to the 20th century. The tree was unstoppable. There was only one last step, the masterstroke of capitalism. Why bother going out to cut one, which fills your car with needles and dies in 3 weeks? Why, when you can buy one that lasts forever? And so, officially in the 1930s, though there were attempts before. Do you know who made the first popular artificial tree in America? A company called the Addis Brush Company. And what did they make? Toilet brushes. Literally. They used the same bristle technology from the brushes to make the tree branches. And it was a hit. And that's how we got to today. So next time you're in your living room, fighting with that string of lights that won't work, remember, what you have in front of you isn't just a piece of plastic. It's an ancient symbol. It's the defiance of ancient peoples against the winter darkness. It's St. Boniface's axe baptizing a pagan icon. It's the apples from medieval plays. It's Martin Luther's dangerous candles and the first bulbs from Edison's partner. It's toxic lead tinsel and German glass baubles. And above all, remember that if you have that thing in the middle of your house, it is, plain and simple, because the Germans insisted on it for centuries. Happy holidays.